Fashion is currently one of the most polluting industries in the world. The textile industry alone produces more greenhouse gas emissions than the aviation and the shipping industries combined. And the amount of clothes we consume is expected to keep going up from 62 million tons in 2015 to over 102 million tons by the end of 2030. This means that we have to use more land and more water. For the Premaster project of the International Business Administration study at the Rotterdam School of Management, we have conducted a research on the current attitude and behavior towards the sharing fashion economy about German consumers from Generation Z. Before our research, the research on the attitude behavior gap in clothing was relatively outdated, since the previous research was conducted about 20 years ago. The field of sustainability has drastically changed since then, and sustainable options, such as fashion sharing economy platforms, have only recently become to exist. Current insights are consequently needed to understand and predict consumers' behavior in the fashion sharing economy. In our research, we focused on the attitude and behavior of Generation Z and compared them with that of millennials from Germany. The reason for focusing on Generation Z is that this generation is said to be the most ethically conscious generation, with a strong affinity towards sustainable and eco-friendly products and services. Though this generation is quite vocal and aware about the importance of making sustainable consumption choices, they still purchase most of their wardrobe from fast fashion platforms. And though at the same time, it is the generation that consumes the largest amount of fast fashion and is the target audience of fast fashion companies such as H&M and Zara. The reason that we focused our research on German consumers is due to the fact that Germany outranks most of the European countries that are well known for their sustainable behavior, such as Norway and the Netherlands. However, when it comes to the fashion industry, German consumers are not aligning their attitude with their behavior. Germany is still one of the most dominating markets regarding the consumption of fashion. That's why we came up with the research question: to what extent does the German Generation Z's attitude towards the sharing fashion economy matches its behavior?
In the following, we will present the results we obtained. We will start by providing short insights into the demographics and then present the results by hypothesis. After that, we will also focus on the attitude-behavior gap. Before getting into the specific results, we would quickly like to point out that 100 people completed the survey. The majority of questions were Likert scale questions, which we treated as interval data. Cronbach's alpha was applied to assess internal consistency and reliability. We tested for normality to determine the appropriate statistical test to perform, and overall, all tests were performed in RStudio. Looking at the demographics, we see here a table. The study focused on the German market, and so only the responses of participants who were also residents in Germany were considered for the data analysis. It showed that more men filled in the survey with a share of 57%. The distribution of age group shows that most participants are part of Generation Z. In our first hypothesis, we investigated that there is a significant difference between millennial and Gen Z consumers when it comes to having awareness and a positive attitude towards sharing economy in fashion. We needed to adopt a comparative research method for this. For this purpose, we compared the variables of our subgroups Gen Z and millennials. We figured out that there is no normality, so we used the Mann-Whitney test to test for difference in the medians of the two groups. When testing for awareness towards the sharing economy in fashion, and looking at the mean, the standard deviation, the p-value of the Mann-Whitney test, we can conclude that Gen Z's awareness does not significantly differ from the millennials. Same as for the attitude towards the fashion sharing economy in fashion. Looking at mean, standard deviation, p-value and of the Mann-Whitney test, we can conclude that the attitude of the two generations are not significantly different. Overall, our results show that awareness and attitude of Gen Z and millennials do not differ, and the null hypothesis cannot be rejected. The second hypothesis focused on testing the attitude-behavior gap mentioned in the theoretical model. In our second hypothesis, we wanted to understand if there is a positive relationship between green consumption behavior and the participation of consumers in a fashion sharing economy. This required a correlation analysis. Again, we tested and figured out there is no normality, and so we used the Spearman's-Rank correlation. Additionally, to explore the potential causality between green consumption and participation in a fashion sharing economy, we used simple linear regression analysis to predict the influence of one variable on the other. So the results of the Spearman-Rank correlation for the Gen Z sample showed a weak positive association between green attitude and participation. When looking at the Spearman's-Rank correlation for Gen Z and millennial sample together to test if the age group has an impact, we saw that the result of the aggregated age group for both Gen Z and millennials consumer indicate a stronger positive relationship between the two variables. Finally, we tested the causality of the attitude toward green consumption and the behavior in fashion sharing economy, so a linear regression model was applied. With our results, the null hypothesis can be rejected. Hence, there is a cause and effect relation between the two variables, green consumption attitude and participation. Now we had to look what this means for our attitude and behavior gap. We measured the attitude behavior gap by comparing Gen Z's attitude and behavior. Attitude was measured based on two variables: attitude toward fashion sharing economy and attitude toward green consumption. Behavior was measured on one variable: participation fashion sharing economy. As a result, it showed a gap of one Likhart's category with 1.107 between a high green consumption attitude and the behavior, and a somewhat close to matching result between the attitude and participation fashion sharing economy. But what do these results mean for us? So let's discuss it. A study by Jessica and Booyoung Kim in 2020 concluded that the two motivating factors for Gen Z to participate in a sharing economy were ecological and hedonic. But can we say now, after the results of the research, if the German Gen Z's attitude towards the sharing fashion economy matches behavior? Even though we did not study hedonic motivations, we were able to analyze that ecological reasons were in alignment to an extent with our second hypothesis, which resulted in a weak to moderate correlation between attitude towards green consumption and participation in a sharing economy. Besides, we saw in the results a neutral attitude as well as awareness towards different ways of consuming fashion out of the sharing economy, such as renting, recycling, swapping, or buying second-hand clothing out of our first hypothesis. Looking at the results of the second hypothesis, we were able to observe that also the behavior is on average neutral towards consuming sharing economy fashion models. Interesting is that we were able to analyze a weak positive relation between attitude and behavior in the linear regression, even though the average are neutral neutral according to the Likert scale. Therefore, we can say that the higher the attitude towards participating in the sharing economy, the higher the rate of participation and behavior is in the sharing economy. That means that the attitude of the consumers does match their behavior, and we were not able to see a major difference in the attitude-behavior gap. Overall, it can be said that these are quite positive results from an emerging market such as the sharing economy for fashion products. So, in conclusion, we can say that the contribution has been made with the research. With the observations that the Gen Z has a neutral to positive attitude towards the sharing economy, green consumption methods, as well as consumption behavior, it can be expected that the market has potential. Moreover, we can conclude that the attitude-behavior gap is fairly small, and that according to our results, the attitude matches the behavior of the Gen Z as well as of the millennials. Moreover, we observed that the difference between Gen Z and millennials is fairly small to equal. This is a positive result towards a greener future in the fashion industry, and we recommend to the fashion industry to do marketing research how to expand their business around sharing economy products. A few words on limitations of this research. It needs to be noted that the findings cannot be applied in general for the whole population, as we only have about 100 respondents, and a sample size of 384 would have been required to represent the targeted population. What are our recommendations for further research? Currently, the fashion sharing economy is not as profitable as the fast fashion industry. However, fast fashion is a finite concept. According to many, soon the greatest business challenge of the fashion industry will be to rectify the social and environmental consequences of the fast fashion industry. Besides of the limitations we ran into, which create at the same time good opportunities for further research, we came to the point that it is of importance that the fashion industry changes its business models to become more sustainable. Like this, we have a better chance to meet its targets of SDG 12. Thanks for watching.